It's that time of the week again. It's Spacevidcast 4.24 for Sunday, February 19th, 2012.
It's been an exact month since my birthday.
Wow, it has been. You're old. On that note, we are your hosts, Benjamin and Carrie Ann Higginbotham, and we're going to be your guides through this epic adventure. I am in trouble. Oh man, I'm in so much trouble. On that note, I think we should just probably get straight into it with maybe a little bit of space news. Space news. So last week we were at Space Up. No. 2 weeks ago, we were at Space Up, and we had this fantastic conversation with the entire group of people there, including Dave Maston, who we want to bring back on the show, probably with our Season 5 shows, and talk about...
When he's not hiking in the mountains.
When he's not hiking in the mountains or building rockets, and talk about what would the U.S. be like if Apollo hadn't happened.
Yes.
But one of the news stories that we had missed was Newt Gingrich's pledge to... Well, you know what? Here you go. I'm just going to... Here it is.
Yeah.
Twice recently, Governor Romney has made fun of me for having bold ideas in space, and has suggested that, you know, the idea of a permanent lunar colony. He actually didn't catch the weirdest thing I've ever done. I'm going to tell you all, because sooner or later his researchers will find it. At one point early in my career, I introduced the Northwest Ordinance for space. And I said I think the number is 13,000. When we have 13,000 Americans living on the moon, they can petition to become a state. And here's the difference between romantics and so-called practical people. I wanted every young American to say to themselves, I could be one of those 13,000. I could be a pioneer. I need to study science and math and engineering. I need to learn how to be a technician. I can be part of building a bigger, better future. I can actually go out and live the future looking at the solar system and being part of a generation of courageous people who do something big and bold and heroic. And I will, as president, encourage the introduction of the Northwest Ordinance for Space to put a marker down. That we want Americans to think boldly about the future, and we want Americans to go out and study hard and work hard, and together we're going to unleash the American people to rebuild the country we love.
All right, well, there's more, but there's lots of clapping. Now, let's put this into context. He, of course, was speaking at the Space Coast down in Florida. So, obviously, lots of people who have jobs in this market who are excited about hearing about us going back.
Right, which a lot of candidates do. You know, they're on the Space Coast, they talk about space things, and they get to Iowa and they stop talking about space things. So
yeah, kind of, you know, to a point. So keep that in mind. However, he's one of the only candidates actually talking about going to the moon at all. Actually, the other candidates are making fun of him a lot for saying that. And that's the point of the conversation today. And this is where we'd love to hear your YouTube comments. This title is misleading. I shouldn't have written this. This says, Newt Gingrich promises U.S. moon colony by 2020. That's not actually what he's talking about. He says when we get enough people on the moon, then they can petition to become their own state. That's not by 20. He didn't say we would have enough people by 2020.
Right.
So not a fair title. I just copied it from the wiki. Bad me. But he is talking about actually putting a permanent presence on the moon. The question here is, can we do it? So we did Apollo in essentially 9 years.
Well, can I just point out really quickly that I think it's interesting that he's not talking about if we can put enough people on the moon to petition a new state, but when we have enough people on the moon to petition a new state. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The question then becomes...
The verbiage is interesting, I think.
A little bit. But the question becomes, who will be on the moon first?
Right.
It's not a surefire... Just because America made it to the moon first, 50
Before.
years ago or so, before doesn't mean that we're going to set up the permanent colonies there.
Right.
We did flags and footprints. We did not set up it. We went there. Nixon said, we're done. Kill the programs. What's the least expensive thing we can do in space? The space shuttle was born. We've been stuck in low Earth orbit for the last 30 years.
Right.
So it is not a surefire win for America to go back. And maybe it doesn't matter. Why does it need to be America that is the first ones that goes back to the moon? And maybe it's not even going to be a country. Maybe it will be private space. Maybe massing space systems, maybe SpaceX, maybe...
Yeah, but the thing is that you know darn well that if there happens to be a private company that's based in the U.S., that the U.S. is going to... I mean, NASA can't, obviously, but the U.S. is going to be like, ha-ha, China, gotcha, we were still there first.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens.
American bandwagon. That's all I'm saying. But, you're right, though. Why does it have to be the U.S. to be there first? I don't think it does.
Can we?
Can we?
We are so...
Something other than, GLXP moonbots?
Well, yeah, but those aren't humans.
No, I know, but right.
So are we capable in this risk-averse society of putting humans on the moon and sustaining that? Because that's the NASA we have today is a very, very different creature than the NASA that we had in the 1960s
well, not just today,
and 70s.
But, I mean, and I know this comes up a little bit later, but not just today in 2012, but how about today in with our budget for 13?
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment.
Well, yeah.
But, yeah, so our NASA is a very, very different NASA.
Yes.
We also have another issue where politicians like to play rocket scientist.
Yes.
If you look at the Space Launch System, which is lovingly called the Senate Launch System, a good chunk of the engineering design in that is not done by rocket scientists. Well, it is, but it's mandated by the senators that NASA has to use a very specific technology.
Right.
And that's a jobs program. And that seriously handcuffs the actual rocket scientists in building the best vehicle possible. Instead, they're building the best vehicle to sustain jobs. So in a program like that, can we actually create a sustainable moon base using NASA?
Right.
I don't know the answer. I really don't. I'm asking the question to the community. What do you think? Is this something we can do? And can we begin that by 2020? Not to say that we'll have a full colony by 2020, but can we begin the groundwork necessary for us to have a colony on the moon by 2020? And more importantly, should we? What's the point?
People in the chat room are saying that it seems like the general consensus is that we can, as America can do it, we just have to want it.
But do we want it?
Right, exactly. And
I mean, you look at everyone else just slamming Newt Gingrich for wanting to build this moon base. And stall for me for a moment. I want to show you this. It's the YouTube, where I got the YouTube video of that. It's the pros and cons section. I just want to show that to you. It'll take me a minute to call up, though. I didn't think to do this in advance.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course. What Jeffrey is saying, we want it as a community, but America wants television in malls. You know what? But if we can get television in malls on the moon, that would still be kind of cool. I think it was Pop Science, which I believe is the Science Channel, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. Was just tweeting out the other night that if there was a Real Housewives of Space, that they would totally watch that.
Probably. Check this out. That is real time, right? So this is not a recorded image. Well, obviously it's recorded in the thing.
Yeah.
47,334 views.
As of right now.
Most people dislike that video that I just showed you. Now, maybe it's for different reasons, right? I mean, when it comes to politics, people are very touchy, and so I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm not saying you vote for him. It's a bigger issue than just space.
Yeah, obviously.
But it's interesting that there were so many dislikes on that particular topic. So does America want to go back to space? Do we see the point? Or did the space shuttle, in its 30 years of what are we doing circling the Earth, really turn people off to space as opposed to turning them on?
Right. Well, because it sounds like it's really, really expensive, and there's a very large misconception over how much money, or percentage of the budget is being spent to do these things. So if people have a misconception of, well, we're spending half of the national budget on NASA to just put 3 guys up in the air and do, water tricks, and put on funny little noses, then who cares? And I think
who cares about going to the moon? Well, how is the moon
No,
any
exactly.
different than the International Space
Right,
Station?
but I just think that there's a lot of ignorance in general out there, and I think a lot of education needs to be put forth to really explain, this, that, the other. The problem is that most of the people who are doing a lot of the explaining do it in such a boring way or in such a technical way that you lose interest like 2 seconds in. So, I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's all fair. Like I said, I'd love to hear your comments. Leave them in YouTube, leave them on spacevicast.com, tweet them out, whatever you like to do, and we'll bring them back in. I changed the banner earlier by accident, but that rolls us into NASA's brand new space agency known as NASCA.
NASCA's FISL.
I'll talk on that in post-show. NASA's fiscal 2013 budget.
Yes.
I should go back in Spacevidcast's archives and take a peek at the 2012 reaction to that budget, which I believe is when, or 2011, I think it might have been 2011 when we killed Constellation.
Right.
And just everyone was like, what? At the time, it felt like that was kind of the right thing to do. Constellation, very over budget, wasn't going to get us anywhere. Again, it was a jobs program. Sounds similar to anything?
No.
But it felt like the right thing to do.
Right.
However, this time, it sounds like we're really starting to slash off some great, excellent programs that have yielded results, specifically NASA's Planetary Sciences.
Yeah, it's almost like, well, we killed Constellation. Look how great that was. Why don't we just kill everything and see how wonderful that could be?
Kind of. So, Planetary Sciences, this is the group that would be sending Curiosity to Mars. This is the group that sends all the rovers to the different planets or landers. This is the group that sends all those really cool satellites, Juno.
And in conjunction with other people as well, like NASA and ESA programs.
Correct. So they're proposing killing the partnership with ESA over 2 Martian, those are rovers or landers, but two new Martian spacecraft.
Which is going to be really detrimental to ESA as well, because there's an obvious reason why they have a partnership beyond the money. Don't get me wrong.
Well, hang on. ESA's coming back saying, well, we don't want anything to do with Orion.
Right.
So this is kind of a two-way street
It
here,
is,
right?
it is.
It's not like ESA's all up in arms. They're like, this is all boring. Well,
it is.
They're all, well, we'll talk about that later in the show, but actually they're up next. ESA's up next.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're interested in other things. We don't seem to be aligning that much anymore with them.
So, all right, so we have detrimented the manned space program with the canceling of Constellation.
Have we?
The cancellation, if you will.
But by canceling a program like that, have we actually hurt our manned space program?
Well, it felt like it at first, right? Because we canceled Constellation, and then suddenly the shuttle ended, and now what? We're all kind of sitting here, trying to figure out what's going on, what's next with NASA specifically. Don't get me wrong there. And then the next fiscal year comes out. The 2013 fiscal budget comes out, and we're starting to detriment our planetary sciences as well.
Yeah, that's the thing that feels weird. It's
So,
like they're
what
trying
else
to shove more money towards human exploration and then take that away from planetary stuff. And I'm not okay with that.
Right.
I mean, I'm all for putting humans into space. I think humans are way more inspiring than robots. Humans can do more than robots. Humans are where we need to be, but not at the cost of robots. We can do both. We have done both.
Yeah, I think we should do both. And
So I don't, yeah. Now, Woe Jeffrey's bringing up another project that is not on the chopping block right now. In fact, it got saved, which is the James Webb Space Telescope, or JWST. That is, I hesitate to say the successor to Hubble because it uses different instrumentation, but it's the successor to Hubble because Hubble, there are no more servicing missions to Hubble. So when Hubble's done, it will basically be sort of replaced with the James Webb Space Telescope. Again, different instruments, so it serves a different purpose, but at the same time, still our big, huge telescope in space. That has been saved, but other programs are on the chopping block.
which some people, I'm sure, find ironic.
A little bit, right? I sometimes wonder where this money goes to and from. So the link at the bottom of your screen will link you back to NASA's website where you can read all about the fiscal year 2013 NASA budget and see what it's cutting, what they're proposing, what they're going to do with stuff. This is by no means final, obviously,
No.
right? I mean, much like before when Constellation was getting canceled, there were back and forth and back and forth. Same thing's going to happen with this. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
And there's some areas that are, I don't want to say very technical because that's not the word I want. I guess boring is more the word I'm looking for. But a lot of it is very interesting. I was perusing it earlier, and it's in at least a plain enough language where I could understand most of it.
Okay, so 2 things came up in the chat room before we move on to the next topic.
Yes.
One was, can they donate Hubble to a school with Google sponsorship? Hubble will burn up when it comes back, and it will take a long time for it to drop back. This is not like we can go up there and get it and bring it back.
It's not like taking out your Christmas tree in January.
Correct. Right now, we do not have the technology, so far as I know, to downmass Hubble and keep it intact. So there is a second Hubble mock-up at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C.
I believe.
I believe that's the one it's sitting at. So if you wanted to see it, you can go there. But the actual Hubble that's in space right now, no, we cannot. We do not have the technology to downmass that. The second thing that was brought up says this was from Roe Jeffrey saying there's a serious problem outside of the space community, and I totally agree with this. He hasn't heard anyone know what we're talking about. Basically, a lot of people think NASA's closed.
Yes.
Like they think NASA, now that the space shuttle's done, that is all of NASA.
Because it's such a lovely catchphrase. And we talked about this before when we came back from the very last space shuttle flight, STS-135, Atlantis going up, that we even witnessed major news stations, not necessarily CNN, but other really large news stations that were reporting that NASA was basically shutting its doors. Like, as NASA winds down with the last space shuttle launch. That's not what's going on. The space shuttle program was shutting down. But NASA is more than just the space shuttle program, otherwise their initials wouldn't be NASA.
So that's actually on us too, right?
It is.
That's not just on them. That's on us. It's our job. Everyone collectively in the space community.
Anyone who's interested.
To educate other people and say NASA's not closed. Look, they're about to sky crane, Curiosity lowering crazy. This is epic. It's either brilliant or insane, right? We'll know when it lands.
Well, it's a little bit.
Whether it makes an impact crater or lands safely will dictate whether it was brilliant or insane. For those who don't know, I'm talking about the entry, descent, landing of the next Martian rover that's currently on its ways to Mars. Go back in previous shows to watch those animations. It's, I hope it works.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. And as a quick aside, we were at the AIAA Los Angeles meeting, and if you're not a member, become a member. It's awesome. And I've forgotten his name. The project manager for Curiosity was speaking about this and why they chose Sky Crane and how they got to where they're at and how all these different decisions were made. And yes, we have that recorded. So that will be coming up on Spacevidcast shortly. We were talking about ESA and budgets.
Thiesinger?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we were talking about NASA and budgets. And we were talking about how kind of severing with ESA, and I make that sound a little too dramatic. That's not really what's going on.
No, it's just they were doing a sort of a group project, if you will, and because of some of the budgetary cutbacks that are proposed,
we're saying no more to the Martian. And ESA, we say, hey, would you guys help develop some of the thrusters for Orion? And ESA says, we're kind of busy with this new craft called Vega. And we don't really think that Orion's inspiring, so no. And
but you know what? Good for them. The sassy younger sister.
Maybe, except that Orion is inspiring. It's woefully expensive, but it is inspiring. So, all right, this is what they're concentrating on. This is the first launch of ESA's brand new rocket, Vega.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage premier étage, décollage. Trajectoire est normale.
Boy, did she go up in a hurry. Did you see that? Vega lifting off like a streak from the pad here, unlike Ariane 5,
La trajectoire est normale.
which takes her time. The DDO is saying everything is normal up there. 137 tons at liftoff. Ariane 5 weighs over 6 times that much.
So yeah, that was Vega. Now the ascent profile looked a little bit different, right? Traditionally, you're used to seeing rockets. They kind of slowly, as the announcer is saying, slowly lift off the pad. They kind of gain momentum. The difference is, much like the canceled Ares rocket here in the U.S., Ares 1, it's a solid rocket first stage. And so there is no liquid hydrogen oxygen. It's
Go-go
solid
magic
fuel.
everything.
They light the candle, and you can't stop it at that point, but it's committed to space. Boom, and off it goes, and it does. It just starts hauling. Most of the stages are solid fuel. I do believe someone in the chat room said it's an all-solid vehicle. I think it's a mostly solid vehicle. If I remember right, the final stage is actually a liquid. But the first 3 stages, if I remember correctly, are solids. So yeah, that is ESA's brand new Vega launcher. Now this,
When you can even tell the announcer was like, well, did you see it go?
it looks different than a traditional rocket.
Looks awesome.
Yeah. So Helda says the last stage is hypergolic. So it's solids and liquids. The neat thing about this is it fills out ESA's portfolio. So
Yes.
Vega is their small launcher. Soyuz, which they just started bringing on board, is their medium launcher. And then they've got their traditional Ariane 5, which is their heavy launcher. And now they can launch just about any payload they want. So if you've got some payload you want to send to space, and you've got millions and 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 millions of dollars for the launch.
Is that all?
Yeah, exactly. You can find the right rocket to suit your needs with ESA's new payload. That's what they've been focusing on. That particular rocket, I don't have the number in front of me, but it was something like $1.4 billion to develop. So a very expensive rocket, but yeah, should be a good system for them in the future. Now, a lot of people don't like solid fuel, but in a payload-only environment, I'm not sure it's that bad. You get a lot of bang for your buck in a solid engine, and there are no humans on board, so it's not like you have to worry about shutting it off and aborting and going away. If the engines continue to fire, and then if something goes wrong and the engines keep firing, then it went wrong. You've lost the payload no matter what. So
Right.
who cares, right?
Right.
So yeah,
lost
not
or it's
all
lost.
solids are evil. You just have to
Right.
find the right use for them. I guess is the best way to put that. Oh, did you see this?
Yes.
So moving on to that's I have no transition for this, so we're just gonna move on. This is Opportunity. Opportunity is one of the rovers still working on the moon. Opportunity's 90-day mission has been extended to like eight years now. Is it something scary long like that? The problem is, see those solar panels? They're covered in dust.
Well, wait. See how you can almost see those solar panels?
Exactly. That's a problem. So we need these solar panels to be nice and clear, so when the Martian winter comes by, we don't lose a lot of power because the alignment of the sun is not going to be enough for the rover. So they're putting it on a hill with like a 10-degree incline. They're going to point it as close to the sun as they can and hope. But this could be, unless we can, some Martian winds come by and blow this all off, this could be the beginning of the end of Opportunity. So yeah, and as Will Jeffrey said, this is a heck of an ROI on Opportunity from a 90-day
Yeah.
mission. And as Quarkspen said, all we really need is a dust devil or two. We do need some wind to just kind of blow that away. But keep in mind, you can have a 90-degree wind. This was brought up in the AIAA meeting. You can
Yes.
have a 90-degree wind, but if there are only 6 atoms in that wind, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good.
Right.
So you need a lot of something to blow this stuff off.
Someone's asking ROI, return on investment.
My bad. I tried.
So the idea is that they built this rover thinking that it was only supposed to last 90 days.
Correct.
And kind of hoping and praying that maybe it would last a couple more days than that. And considering how many years that it has already lasted, the return on investment for that is very, very good. So that was that point.
Speaking of manned space programs from earlier, China has been a little bit weird on this next launch.
China's been a little bit China.
A little bit, yeah.
Their media outlets are a little crazy at the moment.
Well, they're all state-run, so yeah.
Right. So
Here's what's happening. They've got a space station floating around the Earth. It's called Tiangong-1, and it has had an unmanned docking, and that worked. It appeared to work really well. The next spacecraft that goes up there, Shenzhou 9, was supposed to be manned with 3 humans. but media outlets started reporting that it was going to be an unmanned craft.
I thought that was reverse.
And then media outlets reversed and said it was going to be a manned craft. But it's not like they reversed it
Okay.
right away. So the thing is, with China, there's not this free flow of information like there is with NASA.
Right.
So we can pretty easily analyze what's going on within NASA and how they're making their decisions. In China, not so much. So the thought process is, and this was on Parabolic Arc, and actually I think that's where that link brings you to. The thought process is maybe something was going wrong, and they had maybe thought to go with an unmanned craft, but then at the last minute decided, no, we're going to do this as a...
Oh, see, I misread that. I apologize. I thought it would started off already as unmanned.
Started off manned, went unmanned, and then went back to manned.
And see, and I reversed all of those somehow magically.
Yeah.
I did the
So,
vanilla Oreo sandwich.
not sure what's going on there, but if all goes well, then later this year, Shenzhou 9 would launch with 3 taikonauts on board, which would be a Chinese astronaut or cosmonaut. It's like saying astronaut or cosmonaut, taikonaut. 3 taikonauts on board, and they actually, I believe they said they would not only dock, but they would also ingress into Tiangong 1, so they would actually go into the space station. So the engineers must be fairly confident and or don't want to let us know something's going on.
That's where the next show is from Total Ghost.
That is the next show from Total Ghost. Do you want to take this next one?
Sure. Did you want to, are you playing that first, or are you just going to...
I'm just going to, I'll click on the banner first.
Oh, okay. So, Angry Birds, because this was kind of my thing.
I don't play it.
Which
She plays it a lot.
I don't play it a lot. I'm not as bad as some people that we know. I don't play it a lot. But would you stop? Anyway, the point is that Angry Birds, which is a very popular game, and if you haven't heard of it before, the whole idea is that a bunch of pigs, like actual pigs, farm animals, came by and grabbed all of the eggs from the birds because they were going to plan to cook them, is I think the original storyline, and the birds were not having any part of that. And so,
Riveting story.
it's a game. What do you want? There's also Plants vs. Zombies. Anyway, but so the pigs take the eggs and they hide them, and the birds try to get to the eggs, and by doing that, they use a slingshot, and so you actually...
Okay, we know what Angry
Projectile.
Birds is, so.
Just saying. Anyhow, because when there was the anniversary, or no, it was the STS-135, when the last space shuttle was going off, they happened to have a special in their sort of summer one day of Angry Birds in space. It was Angry Birds like on the moon or something along those lines, which was really cool. And so all of us space nerds and Angry Birds nerds just thought that that was the coolest thing. And it was a really great partnership between Angry Birds and NASA. And because of all of that, they've done this. Yeah. So Angry
That's all we
Birds-
have. That's
that
the
is-
entire video.
That's everything. It's all anyone has. So, but it's Angry Birds in space, exactly as it sounds. And there's more details to come in the next coming weeks. But it's supposed to preview, or no, not preview. It's supposed to come out March 22nd. Which is coming up in the next couple of weeks. And at the very beginning of March, we're supposed to get more details. But my understanding is that it will be Angry Birds in space. And so the regular sort of gravity that we have down here on Earth won't actually apply. in the game
That's
anymore.
going to mess. That might be fun. You shoot a bird a little bit, it just goes, poof!
Right, so all the projectiles are, it's all going to be a little bit different, and some surprises, supposedly. So, I don't know, it's a really interesting partnership. It's a really cute way to do some interesting outreach, particularly on one of the most popular games that's ever come out for, like, iPhones and what have you. I thought it was really cute, and if you haven't heard of it yet, now you have, so there you are.
So one awesome place you can discuss all of these different stories is at Space Up. Space Up is an unconference. Exactly. Look at you. It's an unconference,
This is
which
LA,
is
though.
a little bit different than a traditional conference. If you've ever been to a traditional conference, be it space or maybe technology or whatever, and you go into the room and you've got the traditional speaker giving the presentation and a bunch of PowerPoint slides. But the really cool kids have a tendency to stand outside the rooms and have their own little conversations.
Yeah, something that was sparked from one of the speakers
Absolutely.
or somebody else, and they go, actually, that is really cool. Let's step outside so we don't bother anyone else, and we'll talk about that in the hallway.
I remember a very good example of this is we were at a space conference, I won't name which one, and we were sitting outside the room, and Richard Garriott walked out, citizen astronaut.
Yes.
He walked out, and a small crowd started forming, and he started telling stories about space that you don't hear on stage. You don't hear anywhere else. They're just his experiences about going to space and what it took, and just incredible stories. All of this happened while the actual speaker was on stage doing their presentation.
Yeah.
That side conversation, that's what an unconference is. That's what a space up is. And there are many different space ups coming. Do you have the list of space ups by chance?
I can grab it really quickly.
Actually,
Go ahead.
I think it's a YouTuber in the chat room has been working on building a list of space ups in our wikis at wiki.spacevidcast.com.
Yep.
But the next space up coming up is Space Up Houston. Now, Space Up Houston is a bit of a mishmash between a traditional space up and a traditional conference. So you've got your kind of traditional, we're going to do the grid of stuff, and we're going to have those very casual conversations. And then they've also got regular traditional speakers, PowerPoint slides, blah, 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 that stuff. So each space up is tailored to their own area. This one is done at the Lunar and Planetary Institute. It'll be streamed online through NASA, I believe.
Yep.
We've also got Space Up DC, Space Up Los Angeles, Space Up San Francisco, who has a beautiful logo. Space Up Boston, is Space Up Minneapolis, St. Paul still going?
Yes, it is.
And Space Up Europe.
And my understanding is that there are more space ups popping up all over the place. I know Space Up Waterloo, big shout out over there, and Space Up Michigan somewhere. I think they haven't
Michigan somewhere. That's at Space Up Michigan somewhere.
No,
on Twitter.
I apologize because I remember it's Michigan, and I want to say it's Ann Arbor possibly, because I remember the two of them. It was like Ann Arbor and Waterloo were talking to each other, going, "Oh, we're only like 3 or 4 hours away from each other," but different countries, obviously. Anyway, so they're going on all over the place. And if there isn't one near you, then make one near you.
But if you're in the Houston area, coming up, as we showed you, Space Up Houston, that's a great way to continue these conversations, get more people talking about it, engage other people. It's a lot of fun. And you get to set the conversation, you get to set the tone. Ignore the speaker part. The unconference part is the awesome thing that makes these space ups just like nothing else you've ever seen before. They're truly amazing. So check them out, continue the conversation, and with that, we're going to go to break, and when we come back, more space geekery. Stay with us.
Please welcome Richard Garriott.
I'm a computer game developer.
We think of him as the godfather of virtual world.
Your father had the right stuff, but in my opinion, you have even righter stuff. $30 million.
I will launch and become the first second-generation American astronaut. This entire year, I've been in Star City, just outside of Moscow, training.
This is the goal that I have really been working towards for 20 to 30 years.
The view is going to be fantastic, and you'll remember it for the rest of your life.
And welcome back. So this is the 50th Wow, it seems like we have all these 50-year anniversaries coming up back to back to back. I suppose it makes sense, right? Because we kind of started NASA, we can hit the ground running. So yeah, 50-year anniversary of putting humans of America putting humans
I was just gonna
into
say.
space. Very important difference there, right?
The 50th anniversary of humans being in space was last year.
Absolutely. That was with
Yuri Gagarin from 1961.
But Friendship 7 would be the 50-year anniversary, and NASA has built a 30-minute video.
It's like 20, 25, yeah.
I want to say
it's a little long for just your casual.
So let's play that now.
For your average viewer.
That video is at the URL at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah.
So grab that. You can watch the whole 25 minutes. We're not going to put the whole thing into the show, but I did want to give you a quick taste because traditionally NASA makes things that aren't exciting. By no fault of their
videos have
own.
a tendency to be a little boring, a little drab.
This one,
and or relatively amateur.
I'm not sure. Watch this. I think this looks exciting, sounds exciting. Check this out. I think you should take the time to watch this video. Here you go. First minute.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
So that was the first minute of the video. And I just thought that was kind of exciting.
Interesting enough to want to watch another minute.
Right, and then in the next minute, and you're like,
No.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's not
So
true.
yeah, hit it up on the bottom of your screen. This was kind of what sparked, well, Sputnik is what sparked the space race, but this is when we really started getting serious about it. Really. This is when we really started getting serious about it, and this is when we said, hey, look, we can start to do this stuff too.
Anything you can do, I can do better.
And interesting thing is we didn't do it better. America did not do it better. For a very long time, we were behind the Russians. It really wasn't until we landed on the moon when we really started focusing on that. You know, Russia started doing this first man in space, first woman in space, first animal in space, first, just first. And we were like, okay, we're not gonna be able to keep up with that. Let's go to that big, huge thing over there. And yeah, we did that, and everyone was like, okay, done. Thanks.
Which is really sad that nobody else said, oh yeah? Well, we're gonna go to that further thing way over there.
Yep. So, really great video, worth watching. Now, not last week's show, not the week before, I don't know. 422, episode 422, we asked for your responses. We said, what should NASA's role in 2012 be?
Yes.
That was kind of the point of the show. Much like this, the point of this show is, can we have a lunar colony in 2020? That was the. So we had a lot of great comments on YouTube and on Facebook and on a bunch of different social media, and I wanted to take a moment to talk about some of them. So this one comes from Winston Zor, who said, to be honest, I could care less who wins, or who puts a man on Mars first, who goes back to the moon first. That said, I think it's good to have a bit of friendly competition between countries. I'd love to see some major leap in human spaceflight in my lifetime, and I think that competition is a good way to motivate. And I can't necessarily disagree. If you look at the X Prize Foundation, the Ansari X Prize, that was a competition to put a human into the boundary of space, was won by Scaled Composites, which has since built other bigger vehicles for Virgin Galactic, and now the new one, Stratolaunch. So that has sparked a consumer space tourist, basically. And while Spaceship 2 and White Knight 2 are not yet flying to the boundaries of space, we're any day now. Really, guys, any day now. We see the pretty pictures. We just want to go. So yeah, there is a point of friendly competition, but keep in mind it was that same friendly competition that got us flags and footprints and nothing else when it came to the moon. So we were competing with the Soviet Union.
Well, there was always
It was friendly competition.
Right. Well, I think we just need to set our sights a little bit further, a little bit bigger than just, right? I mean, if the goal was to get to the moon, we did that. All right, cool. We hit that goal. Now we have to set a goal of, hey, we need to have people living on the moon. We need to have people living on Mars.
Yeah, but we have Newt Gingrich say that, and he's laughed at.
Well, he's kind of funny looking.
So, Heldesk says, competition is great. Too much international cooperation has helped stagnate the space frontier. I'm not sure it's international cooperation that's made it stagnate. I think it's just a lack of vision, maybe?
I don't know.
Anyhow.
We have another comment, though, that speaks to that, doesn't it?
Which one? Oh.
Right?
I don't know. This one?
No.
I'm just going to move on to the...
Okay.
I'm just going to keep... So the next comment was from Robert V. Volrath. Human missions should be given to the Air Force, which has much more advanced technology than NASA. The Air Force is protected by the vast military-industrial complex, and they want human missions back. Change the name to Space Force, which is an awesome name.
Yeah,
sign up for Space Force today.
And
give them missions to colonize Moon, Mars, and asteroids. The next 150 states should be out there. Not necessarily a bad idea, but we ourselves don't like the idea of China going to space because it's part of their military. What will the rest of the world think if we militarize our space frontier efforts?
Right.
It's not necessarily a bad idea. Certainly the military has 50% of the U.S. budget, which is a fantastic amount of money, whereas NASA has less than 1/2 of 1 penny. So there's a very large discrepancy in the amount of money available there. Right? 50 cents on every dollar as opposed to 0.5 cents of every dollar. 0.5, not even 1 penny, 0.5.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. But would the rest of the world look kindly on the U.S. military going out into space, or the rest of the world be like,
that I'm not sure I'm okay with that.
I don't know the answer. I just thought it was an interesting comment.
No, it is. It's a very interesting comment. And, there's one way to get things done. There's more than one way to skin a cat. That happens to be one of them.
Well, Jeffrey says, just because the Department of Defense has that money doesn't mean it can go to the Space Force. That's true. Still, Space Force is really cool, right? I've signed up for Space Force. It feels like that one movie with the arachnids.
Spaceship Troopers?
Yeah, was that it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was it. Anyhow.
If that's all you gave me.
Anyone
like else get that from that? Come on now.
Chappie578 says it'd be great for Congress to leave NASA to develop the Space Launch System and the J2X, which is the next generation engine. If they're left alone for a while, they should be able to excel with their developments in those fields and stumble on a solution to long-duration spaceflight. Long-term aim should be to get back to human flight. It inspires humanity. I could not agree more. Human spaceflight is the inspiring part of all of this, and I don't want us
because it's something people can relate to. I'm a human, they're in space, I want to go.
Yeah, it's different than robots. Robots are cool and all, but humans in space, when you look at the launches, there are thousands of people who watch space shuttle launches, and there are hundreds of people who watch robots going into space.
Right.
That's the difference. People care a lot more about humans. Now, part of it is we want, humans, not we, but humans kind of are looking for the disaster part of it too, but there's an emotional tie there as well. So
it's only a disaster when you loss of life.
That's true. So the point of that comment is, get the senators out of the process of making these rockets. Don't let them dictate. Turn this into a jobs program. Make it into something. If I can get on my soapbox for a moment, turning NASA into a jobs program does nothing but get rid of jobs in the long run. It's such a short-term mentality to this.
Yeah.
If instead we could optimize the workflow, we would end up building a brand new frontier in space if it were not a jobs program. And it's hard for me to say, we have a lot of friends who work in NASA, a lot of them, and they are fantastic people. And I'm not saying they should all lose their jobs. That's not my point. My point is, rather than focusing on trying to save jobs, we should be focusing on how to do it better, cheaper, faster, stronger, more. That's what we should be focusing on. And by focusing on those things, inherently jobs will be born out of that. Jobs that we don't even have today. A lot more jobs will be born from this. But we don't do that. We try to save the jobs we have today, and that won't actually save anything because, much like Constellation, that program will be canceled too. And it's just this never-ending series of canceled programs because there's no vision behind them. Anyhow, I'll jump back off my soapbox. Sorry, I probably completely blew past that particular point, but
there you go. Next one.
NASA should be allowed to develop heavy lifts slowly and let the Space Launch System evolve as payloads require more mass. Getting Space Launch System launching more often would be much better than getting Space Launch System launching bigger payloads. Big rocket is good, but don't shoot for too big. Interesting concept. So basically let NASA take their time and build the thing. But I don't necessarily disagree, but here's the flip side of that coin. We went from no space program, essentially, to landing on the moon with the Saturn V rocket in 9 years. Why is it taking us so long to do the same thing? Now, the answer is really kind of money, but you can't just let NASA have time. You have to give them money and resources, too.
Well, yeah.
And give them a mission. Don't tell them to build a rocket. Tell them, we want to go to an asteroid, here's why. Build us something that will get there. That I can get behind.
Right. Again, I think that kind of goes back to being specific with your goals. You can't just say, we want to go to the moon, because then what happens is we go to the moon, we set down flags and footprints, and we go, yep, there, we hit the moon. Yay us. You know, you can't just say build a rocket. Like, all right, awesome, I could totally build a rocket. And they'll build a rocket. It may or may not go anywhere, may or may not do what you want it to do. You have to be more specific with what you want. It's kind of like a genie in your 3 wishes. If you just say, I want to be a millionaire, that's great. Maybe Genie will go out and rob a bank and pin it on you, and then you'll be a millionaire, but you're in jail. So good job. You need to really sort of tie down what it is that you're trying to accomplish and not just state milestones along the way. You have to go for something specific.
I think Apollo was perfect. We're going to put humans on the moon and safely return them. NASA, make it go.
Right, and they
that
did.
That was it. That's what they had to do. They didn't have reams of paper this thick telling them everything. It was go to the moon, bring them back.
Right,
now,
and they were given the money and the resources to do so.
Now it should be go to Mars, bring them back. Or go to Mars, set up a colony. Go to moon, set up a colony. One line. That's what we're looking for.
And the money and resources to do so.
And the money and resources to do so. Yeah, but we're in an economy where everyone... that's a bigger conversation.
It is. It's huge.
a bigger conversation. It's not as easy as just saying, hey, one line, ready, go. There's a whole big thing around it, right? You can't just go. All right. I'm very curious about Europa, which is one of the moons of Jupiter. I have a feeling we'll find our first living neighbors there. I mean, come on, planet-wide ocean. There's no life, no algae, no amoeba, no giant fishizoids. I love that. Fishizoids. They wouldn't understand us, we won't understand them, but they'll probably see us as extraterrestrial animals, but they're extraterrestrials. Basically the concept of giant water moon, there's probably life there.
Right.
So shouldn't we be sending something out there? Shouldn't we be focusing some energy and going there and seeing what we can find? We spend a lot of time on Mars, why not Europa?
Because we can't send a rover to Europa.
Why?
It's water.
No, it's frozen.
Water.
Frozen water. Frozen. You can still land on the frozy part.
On the frozy part?
On the frozy part. Dude, he said fishizoids. I can say frozy part. I'm allowed. Dawson Tyson had a question. Do you think that all space programs would ever work together instead of continuing a race that only creates rivalry?
Okay, that was the comment I was talking about.
There it was at the end.
That's not my fault.
The answer is I don't think so. And I know that that's not a very optimistic view of the world, but here's why I don't think so. In that video, in episode 422, go back to YouTube and look it up and look at the comments. And you can see the different cultures commenting, and calling each other names and getting into mini flame wars.
Because we are we have a worldwide audience.
We do have a worldwide audience, and everyone has a different view of the world. And even inside of the comments, inside of what we'll consider a quasi-intelligent debate, it's not supposed to be emotional. We all respect each other. We all have the same goals. Even with all of us having the same goals, trying to go to space, all trying to be on the same page, even then, a mini flame war still breaks out, and people are still calling other people names. They're calling them idiots, saying they don't know what they're talking about. Just this constant barrage of hate in our own comments. And that's the people who are passionate about space. Right. The ones who are wanting to work together. Imagine the people who aren't, who don't want to work together.
Well, I think the other sort of issue is that there is something to be said about the competition, the friendly competition. And I think people feel because the Apollo era sort of came out of that, I think some people can feel as though, well, all competition does is get you, exactly that. It gets you to the moon, and then we're done. Yay, we accomplished our goal. But I think that in the cooperation, that's kind of where you sort of can stagnate a lot, I think. And I think you can get a lot of paper pushers, and you can just get sort of bogged down in all the teeny tiny little details of things that may or may not matter to the mission exactly, because it has to go through this government, that government, this one, that one, that one, this one, and that one. And they're all different, and they all have different, who's going to be the sort of governing body of all of these different governments all trying to work together.
That's a very interesting point, because we as space geeks, we want to go to space now. We want it yesterday, right? I can fairly safely assume that most people watching this show, live or on demand, want to go to space. And we don't have a vehicle to do that today. It upsets us. We want these companies to succeed and go out there. So we want that fast access to space. But what you're talking about is we generally want that kind of cooperation, that international space has a way of bringing humans together.
Right.
But when it does that, we hit this red tape of this, everyone has to feel justified. And that immediately does the exact opposite of what we want,
right,
which is radically slows down our ability to go to space.
Yeah.
So which do we want? Do we want to go there fast, or do we want to go there in a cooperative manner?
Right.
Not to say that we don't have to cooperate to go there, but
right. No. I'm not saying that they're mutually exclusive, but it can be really painful. It can be really painful, from anything and everything to, how many times you're going to document it, how do you document it, how many languages do you document it in, to, safety procedures. Maybe one country has some safety procedures that another country is like, whatever, we'll just get more humans who want to go. Big deal, who cares?
Let's just say one country wants to bring up more vodka than another country.
I don't see an issue with that. Maybe the kind of vodka, that's a whole nother thing. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I just...
Oh, well, Radio Kate brings up a good point. Radio Kate says, isn't the International Space Station a great example of what can be done with cooperation? And I think...
Yes, and also a terrible example of what can or should have been done, I guess, is what I'm trying to say with the cooperation. Does that make sense?
Well, absolutely. It's a perfect example of what happens when you cooperate. It's hundreds of billions over budget, decades late. Right? It is decades late.
Right.
It is floating around with people going, what is going on? And there are many turf wars that have been fought inside of the ISS of, like when you get up there, are you allowed to pass over to the Russision side, or can you pass? It is a perfect example of what happens.
Astronauts have said that, once you're up there, they kind of sort of... maybe look the other way of like, look, your toilet's broken, I get it, okay? Look, buddy, I'm not gonna stop you from using our toilet.
Doesn't stop the politicians
but
on the ground.
Down here on the ground, exactly. In writing, it says this, that, or the other, and that's kind of...
Maybe we should send all the politicians to the moon. Maybe that should be, make them all...
Well, didn't somebody say that once?
Yes.
You get,
Ron Paul said that.
Right?
Yep. Then he immediately bashed going to the moon. Saying
but then somebody else kind of said the same sort of thing. I forget who it was, and so I apologize. I'm sure the chat room, the collective will know better than I. But you just get someone to a launch, like a space shuttle launch, and they'll understand. You just get somebody to do whatever it is. You get somebody up into space. They look back, they see the blue marble, and they go,
I get it now.
Wow.
Yep. But hang on. To that end, I think this is where Virgin Galactic will hopefully not just be an amazing company where you can go into space, but will change the hearts and minds of very influential people across the planet.
Right.
These are people who have a lot of money, realistically, right? A ticket's $200,000. So these are people who have a great deal of money, who have a great deal of power and influence inside of all sort of industry and government across the entire world.
Right.
And when they get up there and their brain goes, tink, and their mind is blown by seeing our entire planet from that far up and seeing how fragile everything is, maybe that will elicit change.
Yeah.
Maybe that sole act of bringing them up there will change everything. Or maybe nothing will change at all. I have absolutely no idea. I can be optimistic.
I mean, obviously playing a little bit of devil's advocate, Kate, you're totally right. It's a wonderful thing. The ISS is an amazing accomplishment across many different countries. As you know,
but not China. We won't let China on. No, we won't.
I know. All right, I know.
This is a much longer.
It is.
This show has gone for an hour. It has been a fascinating conversation with everyone. Obviously, we're just bringing up points and questions and counterpoints, and we reserve the right to change our mind at any time, given any new information. But we love your comments and your feedback. Please leave it on spacevidcast.com. Leave it on YouTube. Leave it on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever you want to go. You can find us very easily. Continue this conversation because as we talk, and do it, please, I'm begging you guys. We are the civil ones. We all want the same thing. We really do. There is no need, even if you absolutely disagree with someone, as I am sure people absolutely disagree with something I said today. Even if you absolutely disagree with someone, you can still respect them and disagree with them at the same time. Please, in the comments, do that. Pay respect to them. Disagree with them in a non-confrontational sort of way. Back it up with facts.
The problem is, as soon as you call somebody stupid, they've stopped listening to you.
Don't call people an idiot. Don't do name calling. That serves no one, and it gets the threat.
Just be the better man.
Talk about how we can actually change this stuff for the better, how we can unite humanity, which, little gag-tastic, but whatever. Space has that effect. How can we unite humanity? How can we get to space faster? How can we open up this final frontier? And can the U.S. do it? This topic of today's conversation. Can the U.S. do it by 2020? That's our show. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you sometime, maybe next week. Follow our Twitter account. We'll let you know.